Good afternoon, my name is Martin Börter, and this is video number 6 in the series, An American Experience. Let's be precise here, by Martin Bolt, which is me. As I mentioned earlier, I changed my name on that subject matter anyway, because it's easier to remember. Martin Bolt compared to Martin Börter, easy peasy. Now, this chapter starts on page 47, and it's called Racism Compared. Straight up. Before I came to America, we moved to Lawton, Oklahoma. Racism was a word. It had no particular meaning other than the dictionary definition, which you can pick up in a dictionary and read the definition of racism. But that's the matter with every with every word which you don't really have any affiliation with, or which is not filled with any personal experiences or stories people tell you or things you experience yourself. It's just a word, like a milk bottle or refrigerator. Okay, fair enough. So I came to America and I started working in the prison system. I started working at a medium prison facility, which I like to include here a little bit because prisons, particularly medium and maximum security facilities, have their own rules and laws. So it's their own world. So I don't want to, compare that to quote unquote normal life outside. Okay, but you hear and experience this all the time here too. Now, I'm in a unique position because I am white, my wife is black. So naturally, I get to experience a lot of racism in my wife's part of my family. They live all over the states, and so it's kind of a unique situation, and which is why I came into contact with racism, I guess. But also, of course, in my work environment. One example. We come back from our work assignment in a van, several people in the van, including a black woman. We drive around after work looking for something to drink, something to eat. Happen to be in Hollis. I think it's North Texas, Hollis. North Texas or south of Oklahoma. I think it's North Texas on the border of Oklahoma. And pull up to a DQ, windows, and I tell her, well, did you want to buy something to drink? And she said, I'm not going to go in there. I'm not going to buy something to drink. Forget about it. Why? I said, because there's only white people in there. You see stuff like that, I mean, then I look around, 15 people sitting around tables, more people, serving customers, and more people outside, in the cars and taking off and coming and etc. And roughly 35 people around that particular spot, because there wasn't much else going on at that point in time, and all white. Or I go to drive to Sealing, which is a little town of Oklahoma City, about 40 miles to the west, and the relative there, I don't want to go into detail what relative it is, but she's a close relative, and she comes from Sealing, and this the census of 2010 for that town says out of 950 something people, there was a population of blacks by 0.1%. I think the breakdown says there was one black person in that town of 950 something, what it was. And I don't know if people in rural areas, little towns, reject non-whites, or if non-whites reject going there. I really don't know. Maybe it's a combination of the both. I can't really tell you. What I can tell you that racism is alive and kicking in the United States. Whenever you hear somebody on the news making a comment which is even slightest racist, you will hear about it. Then you will hear about the person moving backwards doing flips backwards, trying to remedy the chaos or the situation by saying, okay, my comment was really taken out of context. I didn't mean it like that, and whatever have you, or even going so far as I apologize, blah blah blah, and that's the tone. You officially cannot in America bring up racism if, especially if you are in a public position or if you have a state or federal job or anything to that effect, or if you are a big company who employs a lot of people and get away with it. You cannot bring up racism, but yet you hear and feel it all the time. My wife tells me stories about that all the time, and I hear it from my family all the time. You go into a store, or one of them go into a store, approaches a counter where there's a white person behind the counter serving two other white customers, and she comes there with her merchandise ready to pay, and they're just cutting it up, talking, not even buying anything or whatever not, and she's straight up ignored for minutes. They glance at her, look at her, okay, rubber 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 rubber. So that's annoying as hell if I would be in that situation. Unfortunately, I am what they call the white privilege. So I cannot really speak up on that situation. I cannot go to a store and may have the same experiences. I can't do that. I only can hear it secondhand from my relatives because I'm white. I cannot say if they would have treated me any different if I would be black and would have walked into that store or bought a car or go to the local home improvement store trying to inquire about specials or trying to get advice for a project I'm about to embark upon and whatever have you. I can't say what different treatment I would have received if I would be black. But remember, and I think that's one of the major differences, two factors I think involved here, as far as my opinion goes. One, North America is an island. I think the only neighbor they have is Mexico, and that's a totally different culture, race, blah blah blah, his history, background, etc. And there's Canada, of course, and all that, but that's about it. And then there is Europe, or Germany, if you want to single a country out, and then there's the European Union. Through most of Europe, you can drive through with a tour bus or with your own car and not having any border controls, passport checks, etc., etc. They don't exist. If you're part of the European Union, you can freely travel around throughout several countries. I think there are 16 by now. There are some nations, some countries in Europe, on the European continent, which are not part of the European Union. So you still have to show your passport, go through border controls and stuff, But overall, the major picture is Europe as a continent is more or less also the European Union, where you can freely drive around. And you have all sorts of kinds of different cultures, languages, history, etc., confined in a space. So there is always a multicultural environment almost wherever you go, particularly in Germany, which sits right in the heart of Europe and which sits at the crossroads of many ways, north, south, west, east, etc., etc. Wherever America, boom, island. That's how I see it. Second, uh, second reason, there was the slavery, there was the slave trade. They picked up all sorts of kinds of people from Africa and shipped them over here. Um, and the subject of racism is much older on the American continent than the other way around. Okay, before 1964, Supreme Court case, Brown versus Board of Education, to allow black students into white schools. Before that, there was the Supreme Court decision to allow black students go to school in the first place. Okay, it was more or less called equal but separated, or separated but equal. That means blacks can go to schools and colleges, but still need to be separated from whites. And then 1964, the Supreme Court says, okay, now make it more equal and allow black people into white schools, make it a mix. And that horrified America, parts of America anyway, apparently. Just look at the, footage for that. And you have to understand that 64 was only 50 years ago. Okay, it seems like a long time, but also remember the woman or the man who was 30, 35, had the kids admitted to school, etc., went to teachers' conferences, student meetings, parents' meetings, etc., and was enraged back then because of that decision, was still enraged years later. And that rage, that anger, she and he put out to their relatives, to their kids. And I think that's one of the main culprits with which you have to deal with in America. Simply how you raise your kids. I got raised like, look at the person, to make it simple. Look at the person, don't matter the color, race, religion. Look at the person first. If it's a good person, and if the person, uh, you know, doesn't put you down, doesn't want to harm you, doesn't want to scam you, whatever have you, try to be friends with a good person, okay? Whereby other people, like half my age, I'm 47, half my age, have that racist idea. I was standing amongst co-workers. We were about to have graduation at college, and one of the co-workers says, well, we're having a graduation in blah, blah, blah college. And you know what that means, he says. I kind of looked to the side and said, what is he talking about? And the other co-worker said, yeah, I know, there's only black people. Apparently, there was a college which, uh, on a majority basis, has black students or black teachers, or I don't know what to think of. I didn't go into the detail. But me being white, they said that because they assume, I guess, that I'm somehow part of, white people who have a certain mentality towards um, non-white people. So they spoke out like they were amongst their peers, I would assume. Of course, they didn't know that I was from Europe and didn't really care about that at all. And that is what is amazing. That person was half my age, but he must have gotten this idea from somewhere, you know? And that's just the bottom line. If people would raise their children on, on a slightly different level, or would teach them human values in a slightly different way, but of course now I hear again, who is he, and blah blah blah. But I just try to figure out why racism is still such a big issue here in the United States, and why you hear and read about it all the time. um, I guess the best approach is to raise your kids to treat people equally. I don't know what else to say or do to, you know, to approach the racism issue a little bit better, or to make it a little bit better. Hell, there is areas here, or in rural America, where there is no black people, as I said before, or black people don't go there. I don't know which is what, but you cannot also forget that black people are, not much different. I hear that from my black family, my the side of my family who are black, all the time, that they cannot date outside their race, or they wouldn't consider dating outside their race. That is just as stupid. So it's a ongoing attitude, education thing. I don't think it's really a political issue, uh, because I think it's more a human issue. I think it's more of an education issue. I think it's a more of an honesty issue. If you don't like other races, go say so. You can say about extremist. No, let's not call it extremist groups, but movements. Either it's Black Lives Matter, or it's the Ku Klux Klan, or I don't know what other groups. I didn't do no research on what other racist groups out there, or let's not call them racist groups, let's call them groups who are portraying or who supporting certain interests of certain ethnic groups. How about that? Political correct? Great. So anyway, my point is, um, that does lead us nowhere. No matter how we look at it. If I would be part of a group, I would make a point out of the idea that it has to be a multicultural group. you know of course, there is some differences in races and cultures. Some are more interested in certain subjects, whereas others are interested in other subjects more than the other race. That's a given. But I think if we start with education, I think if we start with honesty about racism, then we have made a little progress. School system, straight up. America was a straight up racist country 100 years ago. No person had equal rights but the white man and the white woman. Nobody else was equal. There was no such a thing as equality 150 years ago. It did not exist. And America has come a long, long way. And now all people should be treated equally. That's in the law. But name it, put it out there. People kids in the 10th grade, tell them, or whatever grade you see fit best, tell them, this is what the situation was, okay? And it was wrong, and we are moving forward from here. We are moving forward from separated but equal, and we are moving forward from Brown versus Board of Education, and you are part of making that a better life. That kind of concept is what America needs. Honestly, my opinion on that subject matter. So anyway, that was racism compared a little bit between Germany and the United States. And there's of course some more to it, but that is as far as I go, as far as that chapter is concerned, from video number 6 from An American Experience. Goodbye.